All right, Brian, we're live now. This week,
All right.
this week we're on both LinkedIn and YouTube Live. So this is new.
This is
So we'll see. We should be. Yeah, I see it now. It's in my feed there, so you can go ahead and share that bad boy.
Oh, I can. Okay.
Yeah. So let's see how many viewers this gets this week. So, all right. So what we want to talk about a few different things. What do you want to talk about first?
Well, you've been up.
I've been up a lot longer. I've been thinking about it a lot longer. Okay, so yeah, I want to talk about the MYPSK feature in the Ingenious Cloud. So this is a way to basically specify a PSK for every single user, right, Brian?
Yeah, pre-shared key, right?
For every user. So
yeah, personal pre-shared key for every user.
So think about it. Instead of having one pre-shared key for the entire SSID, each user can have their own pre-shared key,
Right.
and you can either auto-generate or set them up as a list in the Ingenious Cloud, and then you can also onboard them onto a VLAN.
That's right.
So we had a customer asking this week, like he wanted to do like 15 VLAN, 15 SSIDs for like a multi-tenant type office building, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we're running into in the MDU space, or the new thing is temporary offices or conference rooms.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're seeing it being used, and student housing as well.
Yeah.
Where you want every user to have their own passcode, basically, right?
Right.
That's another way to say it. I mean, we're saying pre-shared key, but a lot of people might not know what that is. They may know, but it's their password, basically, right?
Yeah, it's basically the password you type in when you join a Wi-Fi network. Everyone knows what that is. But this way, instead of having one for the entire SSID, each user has their own. Now, why is it? It's not a good thing to have a lot of SSIDs, right? Because it decreases performance because it has to basically beacon out all those names, right? So it's decreasing performance. It's putting more overhead on the APs. It's not generally a good practice to do that.
Yeah. I mean, at one point we the Ingenious APs would do 16, and more recently, it's probably been more than a year now, we only do 8 SSIDs.
Yeah.
8's still a lot, but 16's a lot.
Right.
But it came down to performance, basically.
Yeah.
And it's just better practice to have less SSIDs. You can have too many.
Yeah. I mean, even 8 is a lot. Like I would recommend like 2 or 3 maximum, right? And then use this MyPSK feature if you need to push certain users on certain VLANs for their company. So in that situation, like you basically you could have, so let's say you have 3 companies in the shared office space. They can all have their own VLAN, but the whole office will be on the same SSID. So as they roam around the office, it doesn't matter where they are, they're going to onboard onto their company's VLAN.
That's right. Yeah. They walk into this rented space or this office or whatever it may be, like an MDU is a pretty good example. Like you have multi-family units.
Yeah.
Or you have different families, or they have different condos, for example, and they walk in and it's the building Wi-Fi.
Yep.
And everybody sees that one SSID, but when those individual people they log in, they're assigned to their own VLAN, which they're on their own network, basically.
Yeah.
Their own private network. And then they're tied to their personal resources as well, right?
Yeah, and then let's say in a school like a higher education, they're actually putting every single student on their own VLAN, right? In some situations.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. So they're I mean, it ties back to all their resources, their personal resources. The other good thing about MyPSK is you can set the expiration date.
Yeah.
We can say, okay, they're here for the first 2 semesters and it expires.
Right.
So if they don't come back the 3rd or 4th semester, they don't, the IT administrator does not have to worry about it. But you can set it to always be active, or you can expire it
right
at particular dates.
And I'm going to actually show that in a second. So yeah, that's a good point too. So it's also more secure, in fact, because you're not like sharing one PSK with the entire people on the network, right? So
That's right.
when you do that, like let's say somebody leaves the organization, you may have to change the PSK, even though there's other ways that are more secure. A lot of small businesses just have use PSK still.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of that. So, you could have an office of 40 people, and, they have two networks. They have two SSIDs. One is for staff and one is for guests when they come in.
Yeah.
All your employees know
the staff
at
password.
least the staff one. And if people leave and you never change that, you're obligated to change it.
Right.
So in this case, you don't have to worry about that. You can just get rid of that user, and all the other employees still can access, no problem.
Right. All right. So I'm gonna show how we set this up. Let's see here. Give me a second. Make sure we didn't time out. I'll show my network config here. Okay. So let's see. Okay. So I'm showing the cloud. I don't know if you're looking at the live feed right now, Brian, but so basically, this is the page where you can configure MyPSK under the SSIDs. So you just check this off. Now you see this pro feature here. What's that mean, Brian? What's the pro feature? Yeah. So you have to enable pro first before you can use this.
Oh yeah. So so basically the Ingenious Cloud has a basic and a pro. The basic pretty much gives you everything, but if you're in a particular situation where you need to use more advanced features, like if you're in an MDU or like a student housing, a large network, for example, you can enable Pro and use these more advanced features, and one of those is MyPSK.
MyPSK. So it's gonna give you more features, and this is free. This is free right now. It's kind of in beta, but then at some point there's gonna be a charge for the Pro features. But
yeah, when it finally launched, since you brought it up,
yeah, so people are gonna ask so.
So when we do launch it, potentially the beginning of 2022, we will give our customers 1 year free.
Oh, okay, nice. So they can use this feature and see if they like it, but basically anything that's in the Pro is for more advanced users. It's nice to have for everyone, but most Wi-Fi networks won't need the Pro features. So we enable WPA2 MyPSK here under the SSID, and then we go over to the gear and we see MyPSK users here, and basically you just add the users and you can say, okay, I want them on this network, and I give it a name. This PSK is actually the key, so we'll just put password 1, and then we can say we want to onboard them onto which VLAN. So I can say, okay, so I want this person onto VLAN 2. So when they go to connect to the MyPSK, they type in this password 1, and it'll authenticate them and put them onto VLAN 2. So that's how it works. And there's actually a way to auto-generate too, right, Brian? Like you can add users, and you can auto-generate the PSK. So you can auto-generate more than one too. So you can say you want to auto-generate 100, and then basically print that out and give each one of those PSKs to a user. Now, is it going to also give us? It'll also give us a QR code, right?
That I'm not. You'd have to look.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it does yet, but I know we talked about that, so that'd be nice because auto-generated PSKs can be kind of hard to remember, I guess.
Yeah.
So, all right, so that is MyPSK. It's a really cool feature. I think a lot of people will want to use it once they know about it. Not a lot of people know about this. Other vendors have similar things too, but it's when people hear about it, they're pretty excited usually.
Yeah, just to give you a little more intel on the MyPSK, so it's a unique PSK. So you're getting 500. You have the ability to do 500 per SSID.
Oh wow! Okay.
So you can have up to 4,000 on
with 8
a single network.
SSIDs. Yeah.
What's that?
You're saying with 8, you get 8 SSIDs times 500?
Yeah.
Right. So
that table is being stored basically at the AP level.
Yep. And you can, so with Ingenious Cloud, you can also deploy those SSIDs only on certain APs if you wanted to, or have one SSID across all APs.
Yeah. Ideally, you want one SSID.
Yeah, that's what you want. But to be more flexible, you could deploy certain ones in certain APs if you wanted to. That makes it kind of complicated.
Yes. I mean, if you have like back to student housing, if you have normally they have buildings, and if you have Wi-Fi in these different buildings, you can set it up that way. There's SSID is building 1 in this building, SSID is building 2 in this particular building, and so on. So you could do something like that, but you can get away with just using a single SSID.
Yeah, and it makes it really nice, like in a conference room or something, where if you have multiple, tenants in that building, they're gathering in the conference room, or let's say in a shared area like a pool or something in a apartment building. Then
fitness room, apartment, pool area. Yeah, MDU is a good case, and student housing is a really good case for this.
Yeah, and it's so that they're going to see that same SSID. They're going to connect to it. It's going to put them on their own VLAN, their own business's network,
their private network,
own private network. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. All right, so we talked about that. I want to talk about DNS too, right?
Yeah. So we run into DNS a lot.
Especially with cloud. Like, cloud is relying on having a good internet connection to that cloud device.
Yes. Yep.
So, you need to have, one thing for the internet connection, you need to have an IP address that's routable on that network. You need to have correct subnet mask and gateway address and correct DNS servers. Yeah,
and a lot of customers want to use. It's not necessarily they want to use, but they typically use the ISP's DNSs, and sometimes they're not working all the time. I don't know how to better explain that, but I mean, maybe you can. But.
Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit. So all DNS servers are not made equal. I would say there's delays in both queries and propagation with a lot of DNS servers, especially like your ISP's DNS server. They may not, they may only update the major websites that, there's probably like 10 major websites everyone's going to, and those are probably working great with your ISP. But, the website the clouds use, the hosted cloud server websites, they don't care that much about, so they may not be refreshing those addresses as much as they should, or responding as fast as they should to queries. So we noticed that if we use Google DNS, it responds very fast, and it basically always works.
Yeah, that is the go-to, I guess. Yeah, because exactly kind of what you're saying is that some of the ISPs DNSs don't respond fast enough.
Yeah,
there's a delay there. And so that could cause problems with, cloud devices, for example. So, Google responds very quickly, and they typically, when you run into a problem with DNS, that's typically the way to go.
Right. So basically, if you're having problems with a cloud device, Ingenious or anybody else's, make sure that you're using Google's DNS now. You may be able to code that 8888 into the router, so that's what I would recommend.
We suggest.
Yeah.
You can do it at the AP level, but you probably want it in the router.
Right.
So let's talk about the system, or what happens like when you have a bad DNS, or like the DNS is not resolving fast enough.
Yeah.
The AP will look like it's offline.
Yeah.
And that's typically what you see. So the AP is offline, and you're like, oh wait, something's happening. There's, the AP is not providing internet access to the user. So if you're remote and you see the AP is offline, you're kind of scratching your head like, oh, there's a major problem there. But what you're really seeing is that the DNS is not resolving, and it's just showing offline. the AP is actually functioning perfectly fine. The end user has no problems whatsoever. But from a remote standpoint, it looks like it's down, but it's not down.
Right. So that AP is going to keep functioning no matter what, as long as the internet connection's working, obviously at that facility. So, but
let me say that before, because I don't want to let you go on that point. Because if you do lose internet access, obviously the AP is going to look offline in the cloud.
It will be offline at that point for sure.
Well, okay, it is offline, right?
Yeah.
But it's still functioning. It's still working.
Right. Exactly.
So internally on the internal network, if you're sharing files and you're using Wi-Fi to do all this, it's totally fine.
Right.
But obviously nobody has internet access because you don't have you don't have that line there.
Right.
But they do work when they're not necessarily connected to the cloud, basically.
Right. They don't need that internet connection to work, but they do to monitor and make changes.
Yeah. That's actually a really good point. So we've had it where you have an AP offline and you have somebody changing like radio settings. It's not going to happen until the AP shows online again.
Right. Right. So keep that in mind. Like, if the internet connection's down, a cloud device isn't going to be able to be updated.
Yeah. But we run into that actually.
I'm sure. So, yeah, that kind of brings us into something else. But I wanted to say one other thing about this is like, so again, if you have an unmanaged or on-premise managed access point, usually like the only thing that matters is the IP address. Like, it needs to have a route to the controller, but that doesn't even matter. Like, if that thing's pre-configured, even if it has a bad IP address, a lot of times it won't work because it's on the wire, and as soon as you connect to it, you're going to get DHCP from the router, right? So that a lot of times that'll work even if you don't have the IP address configured or whatever. But with a cloud device, you need to have correct IP, correct subnet, correct gateway, and correct DNS.
That's right.
Which it's not a big deal. That's why we kind of recommend using DHCP on cloud devices instead of statically, even if you have to put a reservation. Easier. Yeah, because there's less chance of making a mistake. If you're
we've had customers go in and configure the IP addresses, and they just not wreak havoc, but they just cause a lot of problems for themselves when they do that because they don't maybe fully understand. So what we typically have them do is set up the DHCP, get everything online, and then, if they want to go back and set the static, it's really easy to set the static. You just click a radio button and apply, and you're done.
It's on them though to do it right. Like if it goes offline, then they know what the problem is at that point.
We can only take it so far.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if you want, leave reservations on the DHCP server for the APs. That way, you know where they are. It's like a static with a reservation. But try to run it through DHCP because you're gonna have less problems. It didn't matter so much with standalone APs because it could be you could put a wrong address in there and it's still gonna provide internet and Wi-Fi and it's gonna work, right?
Yeah. Surprisingly, right now what we're running into is customers are running out of IP addresses.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true.
So
I mean, you
can
always
to run into that.
So I mean that's easy enough to just adjust the subnet mask on the router, but by default they're usually just like one class C. You just muted for a second.
I know.
Brian's challenged by the audio systems on these computers.
No, I'm not challenged. I didn't know if I was going to have a visitor come down.
Oh, so. I got you. Okay, so all right. So the other thing, so that kind of leads into like troubleshooting the internet connection first, because again, this week we had some people complain the Wi-Fi wasn't working. It was actually like Comcast like dug up a line. The internet was barely working, and they're complaining about slow Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah, what we kind of run into, and we had an internal conversation about this. I don't know if this is a good topic or a bad topic, but we're finding that because we are helping our customers, that they want to contact us for any and all problems. Yeah. And they want us to figure it out. Right. Because if the Wi-Fi is not working, that's the whole problem. The Wi-Fi is not working. Wi-Fi is not working. and then you find out no, you don't have the VLAN set up correctly on the router, for example, or
right,
something like that.
Right, or the internet connection's down or slow, right?
Yeah.
So I think a good thing to put in the cloud is like some sort of internet test. I know it's in there already. It basically says, obviously if the internet's down, the cloud's not going to update.
No, I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that we talked about doing is having just an internet speed test.
Yeah.
I think that's on our roadmap to include that, but I would have to double check that. But yeah, there's some other tools that we'll be adding, which are pretty cool around switches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, internet speed test is
speed test that you could maybe manually trigger or it'll run intermittently or something. I know it's kind of iffy because like you don't want to be using all the bandwidth to do the test, right? So
yeah, I think you would want to do it only in a manual, like
in a
it's
manual
off by
way.
default. And you say, okay, I'm gonna run this test right now. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
I think you want to do that.
In that way,
FD,
just so you could for us, we could remotely troubleshoot the internet speed. So that would be awesome if you could ask them, okay, we can run this speed test now, and you can see right there, it's not the Wi-Fi, it's the wired speed to the internet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be. Yeah, it'd be nice to go from AP to switch to the modem. Like if you could test some way.
Yeah.
Not some way. I'm sure. I know you can do it, but we have talked about including something like that.
All right, sounds good. All right, Brian. So I think that's enough for this week. We hit on some things. Remember, ask some questions in the comments. We got some more questions last week that we answered, I think, in the comments. And ask again this week. And if you have any questions, remember to like and subscribe. And we'll be back in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah.
2 weeks. So let's try to do it next Friday from the East Coast.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys.